Welcome to the Rxist channel! Good day! I'm your pharmacist at your service. Good day, guys! So our topic for today would be, how does the ANS works? ANS has different parts, namely your parasympathetic nervous system, your sympathetic nervous system, and your enteric nervous system. So on this video, we will be focusing on the parasympathetic nervous system and the sympathetic nervous system and their effects. Okay, so you have here parasympathetic nervous system. Let's define what is parasympathetic nervous system. So as you can see, you have their Snorlax, and the Snorlax is resting. Yes, the Snorlax will remind us what is parasympathetic nervous system all about. Because your parasympathetic nervous system, it is also known as your rest and digest. So simply going back to Snorlax, he's just sleeping, he's just relaxing, and probably digesting all of the foods that he had eaten for the whole day. Thus, parasympathetic nervous system is your rest and digest. Next, your sympathetic nervous system. So, if you have seen a gorilla, what will you feel? You feel that you are stressed, that you are afraid. So, if you feel stressed and you feel that you are afraid, all of those feelings are just because of your sympathetic nervous system. So, if you have seen a gorilla, you need to decide, are you gonna do a flight, or you will fight for the gorilla? And that's why your sympathetic nervous system, it's also known as your fight or flight system. Let's have the different effects of the parasympathetic nervous system and your sympathetic nervous system. So you have here the different effects. So number one would be dilation of the pupil of the eye. So if there is a dilation of the pupil of the eye, that is through sympathetic nervous system. Next, under sympathetic nervous system, your pupil of the eye will constrict. And there are scientific terms that will denote dilation of the eye and the constriction of the eye. And that is your mydriasis and your miosis. So how will you know that mydriasis is dilation of the eye? How will you know that miosis is the constriction of the eye? So it's just by looking at your mouth in the mirror and then pronounce mydriasis. So when you pronounce mydriasis, there is a widening of your mouth. That means there is also a dilation of the pupil when you pertains to mydriasis. Next, how about miosis? You go again on the mirror and then pronounce miosis. So what happens to your mouth? It becomes constricted, just like your pupil of the eye. So in miosis, there is a constriction of the pupil of the eye. Next, under parasympathetic nervous system, you have stimulation of the flow of saliva. But in the sympathetic nervous system, there is inhibition of the flow of saliva. What would be the consequence if you have inhibition of the flow of saliva? So there will be dry mouth. How about stimulation of the flow of saliva? Then there will be drooling. There is no problem with drooling, but there is a problem here in the inhibition of the flow of saliva. Because once you inhibit the flow of saliva, there will be dry mouth, and that could cause halitosis. Next, under parasympathetic nervous system, you have slow heartbeat, or the scientific term for that would be bradycardia. How about here? Under sympathetic nervous system, you have acceleration of heartbeat. Scientific term for that is tachycardia. Next, parasympathetic nervous system, there is constriction of the bronchi. That means a person who has asthma, when parasympathetic nervous system is stimulated, that means what will happen? There is an exacerbation of asthma. How about sympathetic nervous system? There is a dilation of the bronchi, so meaning this is much beneficial for asthmatic patient. Next, under parasympathetic nervous system, there is stimulation of the peristalsis and secretion. So when you stimulate the peristalsis, that means increasing the contraction of the muscles in the gastrointestinal tract. Then what could happen? There will be transfer of the content of the stomach going to the lower part of the gastrointestinal tract, and thus there will be defecation or diarrhea. Next, stimulation of the secretion of what? Secretion of hydrochloric acid. Hydrochloric acid is also known, or hydrochloric acid which is produced by the GIT is also known as your gastric juice, and it is needed for digestion. How about this? Inhibition of peristalsis for sympathetic nervous system. So this could cause constipation, and also inhibition of the secretion of hydrochloric acid or gastric juice. This would lead to hypochlorhydria. So meaning there is low amount of hydrochloric acid which is being released, and that would cause indigestion in worst case. Next, how about here? Stimulation of the release of bile. That is needed also for digestion. And then next, under sympathetic nervous system, because you are nervous, you need energy, so there should be a conversion of glycogen to glucose. Next, last one, under parasympathetic nervous system, you have contraction of the bladder. When there is contraction of the bladder, automatically the sphincter of the bladder will open, and what could happen? There will be urination. Under sympathetic nervous system, you have here inhibition of the bladder contraction. That means the bladder is relaxed, and the sphincter of the bladder is constricted. That's why there is decreased urination. So this one, the effect of sympathetic nervous system in the bladder is not beneficial to person who have urinary tract infection, but for parasympathetic nervous system, it's very beneficial for a person who have urinary tract infection. Thank you for sharing your love by clicking the like button and the subscribe button below.